Good morning. I want to welcome each of you to our March edition of the Nashville Business Breakfast. We're so glad you're with us here on the campus of Lipscomb University. Welcome again to those of you who have attended several of our business breakfasts. For those of you who are new to this event, we're glad you're here. I knew this was going to be a special morning when it was being planned months ago, and we're so grateful for our guest speaker, our governor, being here with us this morning. I knew it would be a unique morning for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that we have so many of you here and the floor is full. The other thing I realized this morning that made it a special morning is I came in early and no one else was here, and the tables were being prepared, but I saw a couple of suits walking around, and then there was this one suit at this table down here, and he was lifting up the tablecloth and looking at the chairs, and I thought, that's unusual for this event. But then I remembered the governor is here, so we're glad you're here. Thank you for being here this morning. As always, it's a privilege for Lipscomb University to sponsor this event and be a part of this with the Nashville Business Journal. So as we begin this morning, I'd like to invite to the stage Catherine Page. Catherine is the new business development and advertising consultant for the Journal. She's going to introduce our sponsors. Would you welcome to the stage Catherine Page from the Nashville Business Journal?
Good morning and welcome on behalf of the Nashville Business Journal and all of our staff. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing the sponsors. First, I'd like to call to the stage, or they're already joining me on the stage, but I'd like to introduce Chuck Denny, Regional President of the Kentucky and Tennessee PNC Bank.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. This is our fourth year of being a sponsor for the Nashville Breakfast Series, and it's just it's an honor to be among you this morning. Where else in America do 1,000 people gather at 6:45 to network and talk about business? I think it only happens in Nashville, Tennessee, so congratulations for not only your support today, but your continuing support of this series. I also want to thank our speaker today. Having the governor here talking to us is an extraordinary event, and Governor, thank you for making that happen for us. I also want to congratulate the Nashville Business Journal and Lipscomb University for the outstanding job that they do in living out their mission and conducting their business with such excellence and integrity. It's very easy for us to be a sponsor of anything that those two organizations do. For around 150 years, PNC has been focused on helping families, individuals, businesses, and communities achieve their goals and their dreams, and it's an honor to be part of the Nashville community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you for your continued support of the Business Journal and the Business Breakfast. Now I'd like to introduce Marty Luter, Office Managing Partner for Crowe Harworth.
Thank you, and welcome to the Nashville Business Breakfast this morning. We're proud to be sponsors. This is our second year of sponsorship, and we always enjoy coming to these events. I am the Office Managing Partner here in Nashville. Crowe's a top 10 accounting firm providing accounting, tax, and consulting services to clients here in Tennessee, across the country, and internationally. We're proud to be a partner with the Nashville Business Journal and David Lipscomb University to be a sponsor of this event. So we appreciate the opportunity and enjoy the speaker and your breakfast this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. And again, we really appreciate our supporters and our sponsors. If you, on the way in, dropped a business card into one of the fish bowls, we have a winner for the gift card this morning. It's Matt McCall with American Constructors. Matt, if you want to see us at the table to the side of the stage, we'll be able to get that to you. But please enjoy your breakfast, and we will begin the program shortly.
Just a few other housekeeping items that I want to make you aware of. If you looked at the inset in your program, just want to bring to your attention, there's a small flyer on LeaderCast. We'd love to have you join us for that event on May 8th. So please take a look at the speakers that are involved in that event. We'd love to have you be a part of that. One other thing I want to bring to your attention is the fact that every year, we all know, those of us who read the Business Journal and follow what the journal brings to us, we know every year there's a group that's celebrated and celebrated for good reason our 40 under 40 each year. And the College of Business here at Lipscomb is partnering with the Nashville Business Journal in the event celebrating the 2015 class of 40 under 40. Several of the members of that class are guests here this morning. I believe it's table 53 for the class of 40 under 40. For those of you who are here, would you please stand and let us recognize you, this year's 40 under 40? Congratulations. One last thing that I'd like to bring your attention. On your table, you will see a small card that says, "I'm ready to lend a hand." We'd love for you to take a look at that as well. The College of Business is partnering with many of you already in connection with bringing business education in a very unique and special way to the students here at Lipscomb University. We'd like to share with you just a video for the next few seconds. We'd appreciate you taking a look at this and then considering how you might be able to partner with the College of Business here at Lipscomb. But enjoy the video, then continue to enjoy your breakfast, and then we will resume the program shortly. Thank you. Good morning again. We do want to get started with our program. Look forward to hearing from Governor Haslam. Sorry to interrupt the fellowship at the tables, but we do want to begin the program. One other thing I did want to bring to your attention in this morning's program, you'll note that on July 28th, we do have a special Nashville Business Breakfast planned celebrating the tenure of Mayor Carl Dean. I think it's going to be a great morning to celebrate his accomplishments, to celebrate our community here in Nashville. And we look forward to that event on July 28th. We wanted you to have that date. Go ahead and put it on your calendar. Be looking for other announcements as far as other business breakfasts that will take place between now and then and throughout the course of the year. But we do look forward to having you back then and on other occasions as well. In keeping with our tradition, we want to begin our program again this morning by offering an invocation, and we've asked the student body president for this university, Drew Watson from Loganville, Georgia. Drew's a business management major, and Drew's going to lead our invocation this morning. Drew?
Please bow. Dear God, thank you so much for bringing us here this morning. Thank you so much for the leadership abilities you've given so many of us in this room, and I just pray that you can use us as tools in this city, God, that we can be a light and bring others to you. I pray for this city that your name can be known, and through Lipscomb, God, that you can just do incredible things. Be with our speakers today, be with our governor, and help him as he leads us. Thank you so much for all that you've blessed us with, and be with us throughout the day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Drew, and welcome to all of you. We are so thrilled you got up early and joined us for what will be a memorable morning. My job is a little bit different this morning. Instead of just unashamedly telling you all the good things about Lipscomb University, my job is to introduce the person who will introduce the governor. That person is Candace McQueen, Dr. Candace McQueen, who for many years, her career was here at Lipscomb, beginning as a teacher and then moving up through a number of administrative positions until last December. She was the senior vice president as well as the dean of our very recognized College of Education. During her time as dean, that College of Education was ranked as the #1 teacher preparation school in the state of Tennessee. This year is ranked as the #2 teacher preparation school in terms of secondary school teachers in the entire United States. She has done a remarkable job in building a school of about 750 students and not only affecting the lives of students in Tennessee but all over the country. In fact, we measured it not long ago and we found that every single day there are 54,000 students in the classroom of a Lipscomb teacher. So her impact has been dramatic, and I had mixed feelings the day she came into my office in December and told me that the governor had called. And she told me the governor had called and that there was an opening as the Commissioner of Education for the state of Tennessee, and that they were in conversation. And I had no question that the governor was wise in that conversation. A few days later, it was obvious he was going to select her. And I want to just say two things about that particular appointment. I've not had the opportunity to critique the governor in front of 900 people about this appointment until this morning. But I think it's an opportunity. It's my house, and you're my guests. And in all due respect to the governor, we need to talk. So we had this moment where I initially and have always believed that it's a tremendous honor to a university to be the university from which the governor would select talent. In fact, our job is to give people opportunities so that they can flourish and they can grow and they can be ready for whatever the next opportunities might be. So on that level, it is just a tremendous compliment to have the governor look to Lipscomb, and we appreciate him doing that, and we are thrilled to offer Candace to him. As I tell Candace, the reality is she will be out of work in 46 more months. The terms only last so long, and so we will look forward to her returning to this institution. But the governor was very gracious to invite me down to his conference room the day that she was announced, and I was there in the conference room with the governor and Dr. McQueen, and we were about to go out, and she would be facing the cameras. And well, something else occurred to me, and it came out of something he said. He walked up to me, shook my hand, and said, "Well, Randy, this probably means I'm going to lose my locker room at Lipscomb." Now, there's a little bit of a backstory to that. And the backstory is that the governor works out here in this arena down where the Division I athletes work out. That's not telling you a secret. He's mentioned that many times before. But we have tried to treat him well, hoping that there would be some sense of reciprocal treatment. So one day he arrived, and I think there's a picture up here. He arrived, and as he was coming to work out with his bag in hand, I met him. And I told him that for the first time, he did not have to change clothes in the office of the physical plant director, but that we'd done something kind of special for him. And so I gave him the key to a room next door. He opened that key, and we can see inside what looks like a pretty nice gym locker room, doesn't it? It looks like the stateroom on a cruise ship, and he got kind of excited, went over and looked to see what was in the closet. And of course, as he did, he saw the Lipscomb shirts we'd love to have him wear. But he said to me down there at the Capitol that day, he said, "You know, I suppose that this appointment will cause me to lose my locker room at Lipscomb. I wanted you to see what a nice locker room that was. But in all due respect, Governor, taking Candace is worth a whole lot more than a locker room at Lipscomb. And so we'll be talking along the way as she does her great work for you and you continue to lead this state. Would you please welcome the new Commissioner of Education, Dr. Candace McQueen."
Well, good morning, and certainly thank you to Dr. Lowry. I appreciate the confidence. It is a pleasure to be back at Lipscomb this morning and to have the honor of introducing Governor Haslam. I want to tell you just a little bit about Governor Haslam, things that I know that you know if you've been in Tennessee, but I think it's important for us to set that context before you listen to our newly elected governor. Under Governor Haslam's results-driven, common-sense leadership, Tennessee is currently recognized as a national leader in education, job creation, and fiscal responsibility. His unwavering commitment to education is sensed across the state and is making a true difference. Under the governor's leadership, Tennessee has become the fastest improving state in the country in academic achievement. In addition, he's also launched Tennessee Promise, the only program in the country to give every graduating high school senior a chance to earn a certificate or a degree beyond high school free of charge with a personal mentor. Governor Haslam has focused on making Tennessee the #1 location in the Southeast for high-quality jobs. And Tennessee currently has the lowest debt in the country and has nearly doubled the state's savings account. In fact, thanks to his work to make state government more customer-focused, efficient, and effective, Tennessee is ranked the 3rd best managed state in the entire nation. Governor Haslam is recognized beyond Tennessee for his leadership and was recently elected chair of the Republican Governors Association, and his model for Tennessee Promise is a national model for post-secondary attainment. On a personal note, I see Governor Haslam's dedication every day to making the lives of all Tennesseans better, not simply through lip service, but through thoughtful policies and daily actions. He is a man of strong faith and incredible work ethic. These are principles I have seen lived in his entire family. It is honestly a pleasure to serve with him. So, without further delay, please welcome the governor who recently secured the largest re-election victory in modern history, Governor Bill Haslam.
Good morning. Thanks, Candace. Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat. Thanks. It is really good to be here, and as Dr. Lowry said, I do come over here to work out in the afternoons, and that morning after I announced Candace, I really did wonder if that key would turn in the locker room. The reason I come over here is, some of you have heard this, but when I first came, I'm just a guy that, due to stress and all, I figure out working out is the thing that helps me, and so I'll go try to, as many days a week as I can, go try to squeeze in an hour of exercise. And I started doing that at the downtown Y, down near the Capitol. I thought that'll be nice and convenient. And then I learned that when I'm on that treadmill, all those people who can't get to you and want something from the governor could figure out they could go stand at the front of that treadmill and talk to you as long as you wanted. So I figured out pretty quick that wasn't going to work. And so the good news is I came over here to Lipscomb, and I tell this story that college students are college students, and they don't really care a whole lot who the governor is, most of them. And I was here one Saturday, and it's usually really crowded, except on Saturday mornings. Saturday morning's not a real active time for most college students. And I'm in there working out, and this one guy comes in, he's talking on the phone, and he said, "No, man, it's totally empty." And he looked over and he says, "It's just me and this one really old dude." So all right, well, they've set this up to be a question and answer, for kind of a short talk by me and then a question and answer. And so what I thought I'd do is maybe make that talk really short and move into the questions. They said they have a lot of great questions. We'll try to go ahead and move there. Let me just talk for a second about what we're trying to do at the state of Tennessee, if I could do that. And by the way, I see a lot of state employees, and I do have 6 members of my board of directors here. You know them as the General Assembly: Representative Mike Carter, Representative Harry Brooks, and Representative John Lundberg. And behind the speakers, I think I see Senator Jack Johnson, Senator Steve Dickerson, and Senator Farrell Hell. Thank you for coming. If there's some others, I apologize. I just saw those. But they're going to vote on my budget here in a month or so, and you want to make sure you recognize them when you can. Here's what government's about. Government is about providing you those services that you can't do for yourself, right? You can't build your own interstate system. You can't build your own network of schools, K through 12 and higher ed. You can't set up a system for yourself to go down and get a driver's license. And you can't set up a system for us to help families adopt children. And I could go on and on with all the things that the state does. Our job is to, all those things that you can't do for yourselves, to take the money you pay us. In Tennessee, that's primarily through sales tax. 7% of everything that every time you buy a good at a store comes back to the state. We have some other business taxes. But to take that money to provide you the very best service at the very lowest cost that we can. Is government, then the disagreements get to be about, so our job is to provide the needed services that you can't buy for yourself. The disagreement becomes in how you define need. And so a person on the more liberal end of the spectrum would say the needs are a lot broader that government should do. And the person on the conservative end say, no, they're more narrow. And that's where the political debate happens. But within that, regardless of where you end up on that spectrum, what you should realize is, like I said, our first duty is to provide those services that you can't buy for yourself at the lowest, most effective cost that we can. In the process of doing this, and if anybody's heard me speak before, you've heard me say this, people say, well, that makes sense. And then if that's true, then you should run government like a business. And everybody always says that until you do that. And then they go, oh, I didn't mean like that. And so one of the things we've tried to do, though, is to redefine what it looks like to be a government employee. If I asked you out there, what's it look like to be a government employee, I'd say, let's go category by category. Well, how's the pay? And you'd say, it's probably a little bit below market average, right? How do we determine who gets hired or who gets promoted? Well, who's been there the longest? Okay, how do we decide the pay versus for one person versus another? Well, everybody pretty much gets paid the same at the same job. And then what are the benefits like? Well, the long-term benefits are good. So if I described a system like that and said, we're going to pay everybody mediocre to below market. We're going to promote people based on how long they've been there. We're going to give everybody pretty much the same raise, regardless of whether they're outstanding or if they're just doing enough to hang on. But we're going to give you really good long-term benefits. What have we incentivized? Right. Come in, keep your head down, try to keep your job long-term, and you'll be fine. And none of you run your businesses that way. And so we're trying to redesign that in Tennessee. We redesigned how civil service works so that now we can literally go out and hire the very best people that we can. We go out and recruit just like your businesses do to try to bring people in. We did a market survey to try to bring our salaries more in line with what the real market pays, so that we don't, every time we develop a good engineer, a good accountant, or a good frontline case manager in a human service agency, they don't leave as soon as they can get a better paying job. And we decided to start promoting people based on who actually had done the very best work. So we're in the process of redesigning that, but it's all with this end in mind, that we only exist, again, to provide you services that you can't buy for yourself. And in doing that, it's our job to do that in the most effective way possible. Well, that's one function of government. The other is to make the laws. And that's what the group that I just talked about, the 6 that are here, and then another 125 who are elected from all over the state do. But like I said, our goal in doing that is to make this the place where people choose to live and work and play and raise a family. And the main effort in doing that, and then I'm going to stop and we'll bring up the other panelists. Our main effort in doing that is try to make this the place where people invest capital to grow their businesses. At the end of the day, we can do everything we want in Tennessee, but there's nothing that matches opportunity created by a growing economic sector. And we understand that in Tennessee. We're really proud that we've added, like I said, 225,000 net new private sector jobs. But at the end of the day, we realize this: we can talk about that, but jobs get added when folks like you put capital at risk. That's how jobs get added. And people like you put capital at risk when you see a predictable, safe environment to do that in. And we're working really hard to have that be true in Tennessee. So I say all that as way of introduction. I'm going to ask the 2 panelists to come up, and we will get this conversation going. I'm already claiming unfair. You all came with you get computers, and I'm up here.
Well, speaking of computers, let me remind the audience that you can text questions in. If you'd like to submit a question, we'd be happy to try to use your question. And if you'll look at the bottom of the program, there's some instructions on how to do that. I think you use the text number 22333 and type the words Lipscomb NBB and then your question. So, Governor, I suspect if we took a poll of the 973 people, by the way, I think this is the largest crowd we've ever had, so congratulations on that. I think if we took a poll of everyone here this morning, the number one question that we all want to know is, what happened with Insure Tennessee?
Wow, that's a great question. Let me back up. And some of you all know this. Insure Tennessee was our alternative to Medicaid program that we proposed. And we liked the proposal in this sense. The issue around health care, not just in Tennessee but everywhere, is this. At the end of the day, nobody pays for it, right? Most of you, when you go to the hospital and they're getting ready to do a procedure on you, you don't say, stop, tell me how much that's going to cost. But particularly vexing is the issue of how to get, so one of the things the whole system's working on is to get people to have more personal investment in their health. But that's particularly vexing, like I said, in the situation of people who are Medicaid recipients. It's a program that by its very nature is free, and you can't deny service for any reason. And so we worked really hard to develop a program that allowed us to have a situation where, I hate it's overused, but have the user of Medicaid have some skin in the game. By that, there was some personal investment. We developed a system that had premiums and copays, which is not how traditional Medicaid works. And they could be reimbursed for those premiums and copays by having certain behaviors, by not using the emergency room for a non-emergency basis for 6 months, or going and getting an annual physical with biometric screening and things like that. So we were adding some skin in the game for the user so that there was some buyer involvement in Medicaid. And then what we did is we took the federal money that came from Medicaid, and then there's the gap that was left. Basically, the federal government paid 90% of this new population. The gap that was left, the 10%, is covered by the hospitals agreed to cover that gap because these are patients that they weren't getting paid anything for now. So this was our attempt to address the issue that there's 280,000 Tennesseans who have no health insurance at all, and they're receiving medical service now. They're just receiving it at the wrong place in the wrong way at the wrong time. Primarily, that means they're going to the emergency room to get their primary care, which nobody thinks is a good idea. So we brought up a proposal to address that, and like I said, I felt like we addressed some issues of it literally was going to be free to the state of Tennessee. We had a guarantee that we could get out of it. It was a pilot program if we decided we didn't want to. And it was something that, like I said, for the first time ever actually had a way to have some user engagement in the process. Unfortunately, with that came a lot of controversy because the program is a result of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as it's known. So it came with a lot of political baggage, if you will. And so in the end, although I think a lot of people thought this is a good idea, the fear of being associated with Obamacare and the lack of trust from the federal government meant it was just a hard sell in the legislature. So we haven't given up because I still think we have people out there that really need this service. I still think it's something that was going to be totally free to the state of Tennessee and that we could get out of any time. And then long term, it was a way to, quite frankly, start addressing the total health care costs in Tennessee, because we were going to also have a process in this where the providers of health care started to be compensated not just on a fee for service. So if you go to get a procedure done at the hospital and you pay the doctor and the anesthesiologist and the pharmacist and the rehab person and probably 2 or 3 others, but that you would be paying on a per episode basis measured by quality, which we think can do a lot to address the long-term costs of health care. So all that's a long way around of saying we still feel like it's the right idea, but we have to get over some political hurdles to make it happen, and we're trying to figure out what step 2 looks like.
Another topic that is of utmost importance to this room is economic development. When you took office, you and Bill Haggerty said at the time that you were going to take a different approach to recruiting businesses to Tennessee. Since then, we've been named one of the top economic development state in the country 2 years in a row. So can you talk about your strategy going forward with Commissioner Boyd, and have you changed your approach on incentives or other recruiting tools since taking office?
I don't know that we've changed. I don't know we've changed our approach on incentives. I think what we've tried to do is to be a little smarter and more thoughtful, more strategic. The reality is, none of us like doing incentives when we encourage a business to come here, but it's a little bit the price of playing in the game. I mean, other states are out there doing very lucrative deals, and we can't just unilaterally disarm and say, okay, we would love for Bridgestone to move their new office downtown, but they're getting an offer from Chicago, so we'll just stay out of the process. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I think what we've tried to do is to be a lot more precise about the benefit that would come from that business moving, and to look at it just like you do in your business as a return on investment. What's the state going to have to do, and what will the return to us be? I think one of the changes that Randy Boyd made, and I think I see Randy back there somewhere, there he is we're going to put a renewed emphasis on Tennessee business, and particularly our businesses in the rural parts of the state. If you live in Nashville, like most of you do, you have a sense of this booming economy, and every day you open the Tennessean or Nashville Business Journal, and you look at that and you go, wow, they're building another apartment building. Wow, they're building another office building. But that, quite frankly, is not the experience in most of the state. And jobs are a lot harder to come by in our rural areas. And so one of the things Randy's going to focus a lot is having a little bit, again, more strategic approach to rural economic development.
I suspect that if we were to take a poll of the audience, maybe education and transportation would be tied for the second and third most frequently thought of questions. So let's take education next, since Candace is here. When you met with her and you gave her her marching orders for the next 4 years, what did you tell her?
Probably should have Candace come up here and see. Several. We're at a place of it's a real decision point for the state in education. If I could give you just a quick history. Historically, Tennessee has ranked near the bottom of the 50 states. We've been in the 40s somewhere for a long time. And when I ran for governor 4 years ago, the thing I said most was, we can't stay in the 40s and compete with where we need to be. And so thanks to a series of events, quite frankly, a lot of those started before we got into office that Governor Bredesen gets credit for, but Tennessee did a couple of things that were really big. Number one, we started raising our standards and expectations out of students. The issue was this. In every state basically gets to define proficiency. A state gets to say, here's what we think is proficient for a student at that level. Unfortunately, Tennessee had defined proficiency at a very low level. Accordingly, we were saying, 90% of our children were proficient at grade level. But unfortunately, here's the reality. When those same students, 90% of whom were proficient at grade level, went to community college in Tennessee, went to community college, our two-year schools, 70% of them needed remedial work. Well, something's wrong with that picture, right? If we're saying 90% are proficient, but 70% need remedial work when they get to community college, something is wrong. And so we began a process of raising our standards. That became controversial because part of that was the whole term that some of you have heard a lot about, Common Core State Standards, developed by a group of governors and state people like Candace, chief state school officers across the country, to say what a third grader should know in Nashville should not be any different than what a third graders should know in Nebraska or New York or Wyoming or Washington State. And so we developed a set of those. Unfortunately, in the process, because the Obama administration started incentivizing those standards and the adoption of them, they became identified with federal overreach into education issues. And so the Common Core State Standards literally got to be one of the most controversial things that I've dealt with in government. So much so that every complaint anybody had about education, it was about Common Core. So people would say, I literally had a woman say, I can't believe this Common Core, it's making them teach my kindergartner sex education. Well, Common Core is about English language arts and math. Or they'd say, it's about all this testing that's happening in our schools. Well, Common Core didn't have anything to do with that. It's about the science book that my 7th grader brought home. Didn't have anything to do with that either. But because of all the misconceptions, unfortunately, it became a brand that was ruined, if you will. And so we set out to develop a new set of standards for Tennessee that were developed by Tennessee educators, but would not move us back to the days when we said 90% of our kids were proficient and 70% needed remedial work. So what I said to Candace coming in is, we're in the middle of that process. Your job is to literally help us develop a new set of standards, but one that will move Tennessee forward and will increase rigor, not back up to where we are, and do it in a way that we bring everyone along. And so that's really, Candace has a lot of things to do, but that's the most immediate thing in front of us. And we're in the middle of that process right now, and our hope is to get the legislature's approval to that.
The other hot topic that Tony mentioned is transportation. It's been a big topic here in Nashville the last couple of years. There may be a lot of people in this room who were surprised the way that state lawmakers stepped in or intervened on a citywide bus project a year ago. And at the time, some lawmakers said that it wasn't the role of the state to be involved with mass transit. So I'm curious what you think is the role of the state in terms of transportation, both in its major metro cities, but also in the rest of the state.
So actually the whole relationship between state and local governments is a really interesting one. I was a mayor before I was governor, so I have a perspective from local government as well that really matters. And it's like everything else, it all depends on whose money it is, and who ultimately should be making that decision. And I honestly am one that feel like no matter what the type of government is, the closer to home it is, the better, right? So you can go grab your city council person, probably in the grocery store, you see them at church or Little League baseball games or whatever it is. A little harder to do that with your state legislator, and a lot harder to do that with your member of Congress. And so the close to home nature of local government, I think we should always lend ourselves to saying, in issues affecting local government, they should have first priority. Now, that's not always true because sometimes it's our money as well. And so education issues and transportation issues are two of those. The big issue facing us as a state with transportation is this. If I took a survey and said, what's everybody driving now? What vehicle are you driving now? And what did you drive 20 years ago? And even if you drove an SUV then and you drive an SUV now, whatever that vehicle is, it gets a lot better gas mileage now than it did 20 years ago. It just does due to new CAFE requirements from the federal government and everything else. The issue then is this. The better mileage is great. You're spending less money. It's better for the environment. But the downside is it also means less money going into roads and infrastructure and bridges and mass transit projects in cities like Nashville, because you're paying on a cents per gallon basis. You're using less gallons. Roads cost more than they used to. We have a shrinking pot to address transportation issues. So that's the issue that's at the heart of all that. And then on top of that is, in places like Nashville, what are we going to do to solve some real transportation issues? And in rural areas, it looks different. How are we going to provide access to our area? So those are the challenges for me. It boils down to specifically the one you brought about Nashville. I actually think that's one of Nashville's, I guess affordable housing is one as well, but to me, if you look at Nashville's biggest challenges, it's public education and transportation. And the thing you hear more from everybody in Nashville is we don't want to be Atlanta. And anybody that's lived in Atlanta knows exactly what we mean by that. So the public transportation piece is a huge challenge. It's made worse by the fact that there are going to be less dollars to do it with than there used to be.
So to that point, I wonder if you would support legislation in the state of Tennessee to authorize the use of toll roads so that we could create a larger pot of money. And second part of that question, we have always defined transportation in the state of Tennessee as roads, asphalt, concrete. Why do we not define technology as transportation? Why can we not utilize modern technology, things like surge pricing, in order to alleviate traffic congestion, but particularly here in Nashville?
Well, I think on the second one, I think that could happen. It might happen down the road, and there's a lot of conversation about now that we can do that, should we do that? On the first piece was about toll roads. I actually think for toll roads to work and to be fair, you can only put them in place where there's an alternative. In other words, like I-95 in Florida and you have the Sunshine State Parkway works because you can choose. You can go Sunshine State Parkway, it'll cost you X dollars, but be fast, or you can get on I-95. In Tennessee, we don't have a lot of places that will work. Now, you could do it with bridges, but our big issue today isn't, there's not a lot of places where we need to add a massive new bridge project that tolling would work on. So I personally don't think tolling is a great answer to our current transportation challenge. I think what we have to do is we have to go back and look at how we charge, per mile driven on the state's roads, and that gets harder.
When you were talking about incentives and economic development, you mentioned return on investment. I was looking at a question coming in from the audience about how do you define value creation as it relates to government? How do you measure what that return on investment of tax dollars is?
So in this case, in terms of economic development projects, it's really easy. Again, it's just the same thing you do. The expense number is what it is, or the investment number, and then the revenue number we can match. So we can say, all right, it's going to be X number of jobs at this salary, and we can figure out the economic benefit to the state off of that. And then the construction piece is they're going to build a $200 million building, and here's what we'll get in sales tax off of that project. So it's a pretty simple formula in terms of revenue into the state. Basically based, though, ultimately off of the number of jobs and the average salary to that.
Let's go back to healthcare for just one more second. I read an article just last week about New Mexico. They have a statewide 800 number. Anybody in the state, insured or not insured, can call in and talk to a healthcare professional. And they believe that has greatly increased the level of healthcare in the state. It's driven costs down. I wonder why we can't use something as simple as that in the state of Tennessee to reach these people that don't have adequate healthcare in the rural areas.
I think what you're going to see is a lot more of that. And again, there's people in here that know a lot more about telemedicine and other things than I do. But I think one of the things is there gets to be more market pressure brought toward healthcare. You're going to see a lot more creative solutions like that. Again, I'm not enough of a healthcare expert to know what circumstances you can use that in and which ones you can't. But again, I think if you talk to folks here in Governor, we literally in Tennessee are at the leading edge of healthcare. You'll be interested in this. There's more hospital beds managed out of Nashville than anywhere else in the country. There's more hospital beds, there's like 2 times as many hospital beds in Florida that are managed out of Nashville than are managed out of Florida in terms of the ownership of the hospital bed. So I think you're going to start to see, as you see more market pressure added on both the user side and the provider side, a lot more things like that.
We'll talk about auto manufacturing next. Obviously, Tennessee is a big powerhouse in the world of auto manufacturing with big names like Nissan and Volkswagen, GM. There's also been some big moves lately where some big auto manufacturers have chosen states near Tennessee, such as Mercedes-Benz and Toyota, and then Tesla going out to Nevada. Was Tennessee in the running for any of those? Should we be in the running? Like, is there, with all the rapid changes in technology in the auto world, do we still have the incentive appetite to bring big-name automakers here?
I think we do. The auto business is great for this reason. For every automobile job that comes out of the original equipment manufacturer, whether it be Nissan here in Smyrna or Volkswagen in Chattanooga or General Motors in Spring Hill, they bring a lot of other jobs with them in the supplier on the supplier side. So a Volkswagen that Governor Bredesen did the original deal with, and then we did a second deal with, you might look at it and go, man, that's a rich deal you did for them. But we have a chance literally in Chattanooga to turn it into the North American hub for all of Volkswagen. It's their only plant in the U.S. We really can make something special happen there. And interestingly, for Volkswagen, here's the reality about the auto business. In the past, people have trusted us to build their cars. They just haven't trusted us to design their cars. It's like they said, we'll let you be the muscle. We're not sure we trust you to be the brain. And the good news is that's changing. Volkswagen agreed to put their R&D center for all of North America in Chattanooga, which is a big deal. Nissan is considering the very same thing here in Smyrna. So what we're seeing is not only we have the original equipment manufacturer and the suppliers that come with them, but we have the chance, because we're changing our image of who we are as a state, to get the brain power that comes with that too, in terms of all these R&D jobs and the big salaries that come with them. So to your question, do we have the appetite to continue to compete? We do. Now, one of the issues is there's not a whole lot of automakers out there that haven't found a home. And so, we talk a lot to the car makers because they're such a big deal. A big fish only comes along every so often.
Governor, you just recently became the chairman of the Republican Governors Association, and I won't put you on the spot by asking about presidential ambitions or vice presidential ambitions, but I will put you on the spot to ask you what leadership can you bring at the national level to get us out of this crazy situation we find ourselves in as we watch politicians in Washington unable to govern because they can't seem to be civil with each other.
Right, so my job at RGA is really interesting because we have 31 Republican governors, and I said, I think they asked me to be the chair because I might have been the only one of the 31 who wasn't running for president at the time. So, but we have an executive, this is interesting, we have an executive committee of 6 people, and 3 of those 6 are Chris Christie, Bobby Jindal, and Scott Walker, all of whom are running for president. So when you're in this small room and you're chairing this meeting and half of the members are people who are running against each other for president, the dynamics can be interesting, to say the least. But I think it's really important, back to your question about Washington, that we not become what Washington is. I've spent a lot more time up there recently than I have before, and it is incredibly discouraging because when you go talk about a problem, both sides talk about it in terms of, well, here's how we're going to posture that against them. So they're going to say this and we're going to say that, but nowhere in there do you hear anybody say, and here's what we're going to actually do to solve the problem. And that's incredibly discouraging. And so the first thing you should want to do here is make certain that you elect people who are about solving problems. We all have ideologies. We all have beliefs about what government should be. But at the end of the day, as I said when I was standing up there, our job is to solve problems for people. That's what we do. And we need to elect people that think that way and insist that people keep thinking that way. The other thing I'd point out is this. Beware of political situations when it's in people's financial incentive to keep things stirred up. In other words, what's different now about Washington from 30 years ago? I mean, politics has always been nasty. I mean, you know, Andrew Jackson, who was president from here, he's on his dying bed out at the Hermitage, and they said, well, do you wish you'd done anything different? And he said, yes, I wish I'd have shot Clay. Henry Clay from Kentucky was his nemesis. And I wish I'd hung Calhoun. Well, Calhoun was his vice president, okay? So politics has always been nasty. But here's the difference. Today, there are a lot of people that make money off of keeping things stirred up. And some of those might be TV networks, some of those might be fundraising networks, but it is a very, very different world. And I got invited to a dinner with congressional leadership, kind of both Republicans in the House and the Senate, and it was so interesting to hear them talk about who influences the conversation. And when you get back to it, it's all groups that have a financial incentive in keeping things stirred up rather than solving problems. And we should all be concerned about that.
Your office recently introduced a reform bill on sales taxes for out-of-state companies that make purchases here in Tennessee. Curious if you could outline any more specifics related to that plan and how you think it will be beneficial to businesses in Tennessee?
I think what we're trying to do is to level the playing field. The reality is the world's changed, right? Before, it was really easy to know who should pay a sales tax, right? Where you went up and bought something at a store and you paid for it there. Now you have issues around what happens when you buy something over the internet. And the reality is right now, if there's something called Nexus, if that company has a physical presence in Tennessee, they have to collect sales tax from you. If they don't, they don't. So if you buy something off of eBay, you're probably not paying sales tax to the state of Tennessee. It's actually due, I should tell you that. It's just not required for the retailer to collect it. If you buy something from Walmart.com, because they have a physical presence in here, they have to collect that sales tax from you. The same thing is true in any number of ways. If you download a new internet game off of the cloud, who do you owe internet sales tax on that? So it's our effort to level the playing field so that out-of-state businesses that don't have a physical presence here, they're collecting the same sales tax that in-state businesses are. And it can get very complex, but ultimately as the world changes fast, what we're trying to do is, obviously we want to make sure we get our fair share of the revenue, I'll be honest about that. But secondly, we just want to keep the playing field level for businesses in-state and out-of-state.
Governor, the last time we shared a speaker's table was last June, and we hosted a luncheon that day for Bob Buford, who wrote the book Halftime. And you asked to introduce him because of the profound effect that he apparently had on your life, I guess through that book, which espoused the idea that when you reach a certain point in your career, it might be a good thing to change gears and maybe give back. You did that. You changed gears. Why did you leave the family business, and what observations do you have now at this juncture about the role of changing gears for the rest of us?
Yeah, obviously everybody's life is different, and it wouldn't be fair for me to make a judgment and say, hey, this is what everybody should do. But for me, I literally spent the first 20, 25 years in business, and then left, now 11 years ago to be the mayor of Knoxville, where I was for 7 years and have done this job for 4 years. So for me, it has been incredibly gratifying to take a role in public service. As much as politics might frustrate you and you get so mad when you watch the evening news or you read the paper, it really does matter who we elect to serve in these offices. And for me, I guess the backstory goes back further than this. Actually, before I was in business, my original plan coming out of college was to go to seminary and then be a pastor. And changed my mind sort of once I'd gotten out of school and was working a little bit and thought, I'm not sure that's really the right thing for me to do. But interestingly, as I've moved into this role, I tell people, people think that being the mayor or governor is like being the CEO of the city or of the state, but it's actually really a lot more like being the senior pastor. In this way, the struggle of government is, here's what would surprise most of you if we swap jobs. The decisions on what we're going to do, and we're in the middle of a budget process, what we're going to spend money on, it's not good things versus bad things. It's good things versus other good things. So if I said, should we pay teachers more? Most of you in this room would say yes. If I said, should we pay our frontline workers who work for our Department of Children's Services more money? They're the people that go into homes and make the incredibly difficult decision. Am I going to take that child away from the family due to threats of abuse? I mean, can you imagine many harder decisions than deciding whether or not to take a child away from a family? I can go on and on about, should we pay our law enforcement officers more? Should we have more law enforcement officers to keep it safe? I mean, I can go on. And most of those things, everybody in this room would go, yes, you should do that. And then I'd say, should we raise your taxes? And you'd go, no, not so much. So the point is, we're about setting priorities among a lot of good things that we can be doing. I am somebody, like I said, I believe in smaller, limited government. And so I'm going to make that decision somewhere different than somebody who believes in expansive government might make it. But regardless, we're deciding between good things and other good things. Here's the net result, though, is when we can go, and like I said, I'm so glad these legislators are here, when you can go and make decisions that can literally change the trajectory of people's lives, it's a big deal. So we started out on the Tennessee Promise. That's our promise that every Tennessean, if you graduate from high school, you can go to college. And you think, what a great idea. I wonder if we can pull that off. And Randy Boyd was part of the initiator of the idea and kind of pushed on it. And all of a sudden one day we figured out we can do this. We have a way that we can tell every Tennessean 2 years free of community college or technical school, absolutely free. And we knew that would be a game changer. And you know that in concept, and then you go start meeting kids. I was speaking at a dinner in Memphis last Thursday night, and the guy waiting on my table came up and said, hey, what do you do? I'm a senior in high school, blah, blah, and he goes, well, I'm taking advantage of that. I said, what are you doing next year? So I'm taking advantage of that Tennessee Promise. Nobody in my family's ever gone to college. My parents said I couldn't do it, but my guidance counselor showed me how, and I've applied, and I'm going to Southwest State Community College next year. Well, that's the really life-changing stuff that we can do in government.
Between your role as a public official and also your family connections, much of your life has been in the public eye. So I'm curious, what would people here be surprised to learn about you?
Dang, a lot, thankfully. This is where I'm glad my wife Chrissy's not here. What would they be surprised? I spent the weekend. We have 4 grandchildren, and I spent the weekend taking care of a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And you might be the governor, but 1-year-old's diapers still smell the exact same when you change them. But have had a job that's been in the public eye, but the reality is, and I think if you talk to most people who have very public jobs, while that gets old, it gets old after a while, having, everywhere you go, there comes a certain amount of public scrutiny, and everybody has an opinion about you, and it takes a little while to get used to that everybody has an opinion about you, good or bad. That's how it's like being a pastor, by the way. Everybody has an opinion about the pastor, whether the sermon this week was good or not, et cetera. And everybody has an opinion about the governor, whether Insure Tennessee was a really smart idea, or it was a stupid idea, or it was a good idea, but he blew how he executed it. You have to get used to the fact that everybody has an opinion about you, there's a process to getting used to that.
Well, we're running out of time, so maybe a couple of last questions. Lori, why don't I take this one and you take the last one, if that's okay. So I know we all want to know, are you and your brother and Peyton really going to buy the Titans?
Well, I'm not. I'm not. That's, as I said, my brother's involved in pro football. You talk about, you think you catch a lot of grief being governor. Go be involved in a football team, because that's something everybody has passion about. So every now and then I laugh. He'll call me and say, "Man, we came out with this great deal, and the media just blasted us." And I'll go, "Welcome to my world." So,
well, could I rephrase that question? Could I ask you please to buy the Titans?
Yeah. I'll say this. I wouldn't. This is a different comment than you asked, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Peyton involved in pro football in a bigger way going forward. I mean, I just think, I'm not saying necessarily here. He loves the game, and I'll be surprised if he's not far from it.
Well, Tony said earlier that he wouldn't put you on the spot, but I will. You've been recognized nationally for some of your initiatives here in Tennessee, particularly education. You're a widely popular moderate Republican governor. You've taken a national role with the Republican Governors Association. All of these things, you hail from a family with great wealth and resources. All of these things certainly put you on a national stage, or the potential to. So when you leave the governor's office, what's next for you politically? People think I'm dodging the question. I honestly don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I'll say this. One of the problems in politics is when people go do a job, if you run for city council, they're like, "When are you going to run for mayor?" If you run for mayor, when are you going to run for governor? If you're, and people are always like, "Well, what's next?" And I honestly think people get in trouble when they think that way, when they think toward, "Well, what am I going to do next?" A lot of our best potential political leaders, I think, have gotten messed up when they're always thinking about that next thing. I honestly don't know. I mean, I've loved being in government service. I really have. I love being in business, but this has been a great fit for me that I've loved doing. But I really don't know what 4 years from now will look like. 4 years from now, there'll be another governor, and hopefully they'll be coming to breakfast here at Lipscomb, and as somebody that's been in office for 4 weeks. And I really don't know. The issue around doing something on the national level is the circumstances all have to work, right? Either if you're going to be elected office, or if you're going to go work with somebody in Washington or whatever, the circumstances have to work. And I think if this far out, if you try to plan your life around that, you're probably wasting some things.
Let's thank the governor for being here.
Thank you, Governor Haslam, for being here this morning. Thank you for your vision to make Tennessee a better place. As we close, if you take a look at the screens real quick, there you'll see a picture of a bridge. This is a bridge that is located in southern Honduras in a little town called Choyateca. I had the experience of traveling over the old bridge that was replaced by the bridge that you see here. The bridge that you see here was a gift from the Japanese to that small, impoverished community. It was a bridge that served Choyateca extraordinarily well for years until in 1998 when Hurricane Mitch hit and dropped 100 inches of rain in one weekend. The entire country of Honduras literally flowed through that town, through the Choyateca River out to the Pacific Ocean. And when the waters resided, what was left was what you see on the screen. There was a bridge, and the land that it connected had eroded away, and there was nothing there that the bridge connected. And yet that bridge stood over a piece of dry land as the river had actually moved. And so as we think about this picture and as we think about where we are in Tennessee, it's somewhat reflective. And that is that in this state, because of the leadership of Governor Haslam and so many of you in this room, we have a lot to celebrate. You see, what was so interesting about this bridge was that the Japanese, when they reflected back on it, they celebrated. They said, look at this engineering marvel. Isn't this the best bridge that you could build? And yet there was Hondurans that looked at this bridge and said, well, it's great, but we need a new bridge. And so like the Japanese, this morning we celebrate the wonderful things that are going on in the state of Tennessee, but perhaps as we leave here, we're motivated by something that the governor mentioned, something that is important to every single one of us in Tennesseans, and that is that there are neighbors and there are others that are looking for a new bridge. And with the talent and the resources and the will of the people in this room, when business leaders and governors and governmental leaders all come together and work together, there is no doubt in my mind that we can build the bridges that will help all Tennesseans. And there's no doubt, as we think about the child who is looking for a public education that will prepare them for college, or the business that is looking for the talent pool to grow their business, or the family that is looking for a transportation infrastructure that will bring mommy and daddy at home tonight as opposed to having them sit on a freeway. As we think about those folks, we're reminded that we must continue to be in the bridge building business to make Tennessee a wonderful place. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you at the next business breakfast. Have a great rest of your day.